Levels of work. It's a fundamental discovery of the work of Elliott Jaques, known as requisite organisation, but it's also sometimes mistakenly seen to be the whole work. The purpose of this module is to get an understanding of the underlying concepts of levels of work, how it applies, and importantly also what it isn't. The basis of the concept comes from complexity. Let's define complexity. It's important that we work with definitions. Complexity is how many variables are we dealing with, how easily can we make them out, and how quickly do they change. To put it another way, how many balls are in the air, can we see all the balls that are in the air, and how fast are those balls moving? The more there are, the more complex the situation is. To look at it from a practical viewpoint, imagine the complexity involved in making your own breakfast compared to the complexity of putting on catering for an entire 300-person wedding. If you just consider the number of variables that you have to decide in each of those two situations, that's why we instinctively know that catering 300 people for a wedding is a lot more complex. So what's this got to do with organisations? Well, the answer is in hierarchy. Now, hierarchy is traditionally thought of as a command and control thing. We need to have a hierarchy because we can't trust people, and by putting a hierarchy in place, it allows us to control people and pass messages down. That's how hierarchy is traditionally viewed. But that is the way that hierarchy is often put into place. The real purpose of hierarchy is to allow natural layers of complexity to take place in an organisation in order for work to get done. And these layers of complexity work in two directions. They create the conditions for the layers of complexity below them to successfully deliver their work, and they also allow a longer term future of the organisation to be put into place. So that's how we use complexity, to allow work to naturally take place. How do we measure this complexity? Well, there's various ways that it's looked at, but one of the discoveries of Elliott Jaques, which has been borne out in organisations all around the world for decades now, is the concept of time span, which is essentially this. The longer the expected completion time of a given task, the more complex that task is. And if you think about it, it sort of makes sense. If you imagine the amount of things that could move in 10 years compared to the amount of things that can move in one day, the 10-year is obviously a more complex situation. Imagine it like this. Imagine getting a full 10 years of stuff and cramming it into a box that's one day long. Imagine how crazy that box would be, 10 years worth of stuff in a day. It's pretty complex. But that's what we're actually asking our senior leaders to do. Pilot an organisation on a course that keeps us sustainable for a long period of time, i.e. it's more complex. The practical application of this information is by identifying the right layers of complexity an organisation needs. When we set up an organisational hierarchy, we can make sure that we're not putting in layers of management, layers of work that don't actually exist. But at the same time, we can make sure there are sufficient layers that exist in order for the work to be done effectively. Sounds good, right? Well, it might sound good from the point of view of the CEO or from the point of view of an organisational design specialist, but the reason it's good for the people working in the organisation is that it gives us the design conditions so that managers can truly add value to the work of their people. Think about your own situation. If you have an issue you're trying to work through, it feels like you've hit a roadblock, you've tried various ways to get around it, you're going to want to naturally go and speak to someone who can offer you that bigger perspective, the person that can see well over the roadblock and can describe the conditions in front of you. But the purpose of this isn't to actually answer your question and do the work for you. The purpose of this is to continue respecting your natural capability and abilities and to provide you some more thinking so you can then come up with the answer yourself. And by each person being able to have a manager who can set that perspective, who can add value to them, and we do that through using the natural layers of complexity to set up roles and put people into those roles with the capability who can do that, it allows people to receive what we call genuine value-adding leadership. So if this all sounds pretty good, why does hierarchy always seem to be so bad? Why do organisations seem hell-bent on, let's remove the hierarchy or let's make it a flat hierarchy? And the reason for this is quite simple. It's a baby with the bathwater situation. Bad hierarchy is bad. Having a situation where there are more managerial layers than necessary is going to cause people to have to seek things like sign-offs and approvals, people to have to take things to their manager that they don't feel that they have to, managers to be frustrated that the people aren't actually bringing them the sort of work they want, and we're actually setting up people to fail. We're putting people into what is ultimately the same job and asking them to be the manager of each other. Whereas if we can use the principles of complexity to set up managerial layers where people can get genuine value-adding leadership, what they'll actually find is that the hierarchy disappears. They might even see their workplace as a flat structure, as there is such a natural amount of collaboration and communication and people getting value add from the roles around them that the hierarchy is not even noticed. So there it is. Work complexity and hierarchy as a natural way that we can organise work, ultimately to get work done and so that people can feel genuinely valued as they go about contributing their work.